It's the Afterglow. TJ Brassel, Yogi Roth. Signing day, hours away. Early signing period, but it feels like it's year-round. It's definitely been month-round with the portal. Brandon Huffman is a guru. We lock him in every single year. I'll continue to do that wherever this podcast goes after this year. TJ, what was your takeaway? Are you excited about the signing day this year? Like, where do you even net out with the emotions around it because of what the portal has done, taken a lot of the buzz away from what was high school players, day to shine for the most part?
Yeah, no, you're right. It's 1,000% year round because everyone's always wondering, like, if someone's not playing, like, okay, is this kid jumping in the portal? And then it's like, okay, what about this recruit? And like, what about this? And what about that? It's nonstop. It's wild. And I feel like the portal has almost made, like, signing day is great. I feel like for the outside fan, it's dimmed it a little bit because everyone's so focused on, they're like, oh, well, this kid's played in college. Let's focus on, he might help us sooner than this incoming freshman who might have to like progress more and stuff. But one thing I hope, and I don't think it's done, is I hope it hasn't dimmed the light of signing day for the athletes, because that was such a special day when you sign for a school and you're like, this is where I'm going for the next however many years. Now, I mean, it might be next 1 year before you jump in the portal, but initially it was the next like 3, 4, or 5 years. And so I hope it still has that kind of gravitas to it, and it's still like exciting for them, because it was a really cool day. And I always loved signing day, because I remember, like, back, I didn't sign on signing day, I signed later, but I remember, like, back when I signed, like, how cool that moment was of being like, I really just signed like a national letter of intent to Oregon. Like, it was a cool moment. So I hope it hasn't done that. But I mean, I love that conversation. I love hearing, with all his knowledge of the recruiting world, now the portal world and everything. I thought it was really interesting, his take on, like, well, both your guys' takes actually on why quarterbacks leave now. He was saying, like, it used to be, it seemed like kids were kind of ducking competition, but like now you guys are saying, in part, it's almost like they're seeking it out, but it's also, there's not just one reason. There's fit, a coach leaves, like, he might be able to get more money here, more money there, and stuff like that. That was really interesting. Along with, he kind of called out, not like drastically, but kind of called out both coaches and fans a little bit, and I kind of loved it. Of one being like, how fans will be like, oh, I can't believe this guy is so low. And he's like, you didn't know about this kid yesterday. Like, why are, like, it's not like fair weather fans, but that, and the, when coaches start talking about NIL, the impact that has on kids, and how, like, it had, now that kid is like, oh, well, maybe I should jump in the portal and go see if I can get money. And then they jump in the portal, and then all of a sudden they don't have their scholarship anymore, and they don't find another school, and then they have to go to who knows where, type of a stuff. Like, I think there's that side of the portal that a lot of people don't necessarily think about, that you so gracefully address in a lot of these conversations. You're like, well, what about this side of it? And that's why I love hearing you talk about this, is because there's so many points that people only see how it impacts their school. They don't necessarily see other things. I think the question that I have, and I mentioned this to you beforehand, I was like, I wonder, like, how this works. And it was like, which ranking, and like, how is it viewed, of who's more important, a 5-star #1 recruit in the country, or the #1, or a top like 15 like portal transfer? Like, who is seen as more impactful? Because like the 5-star is supposed to be able to play right away, and like, you would think he'll be there for 4 years and stuff, where the portal guy might not be, but also the portal guy has more experience. Like, how do you see that?
Yeah, I think the answer is probably both,
Mm-hmm.
because current fan bases need to win now,
Yeah.
right? Like, look at what let's just look at USC.
Mm-hmm.
Year one with Lincoln Riley, they bring in a bunch of talented transfers, and they're on the cusp of a CFP. Well, year two, they bring in a bunch of other transfers, but the schedule gets more challenging, the league's more challenging, and their schedule is dramatically different than it was in year one.
True.
You look at Colorado, dramatically flipped their roster, and they didn't win any more games in the league, but they were way more competitive in the league. And I just go to, like, you look at all the teams in the CFP, and I have this stat for you. It's amazing. I want to pull it up because I want to get it exactly right.
I love it.
But I think when you look at transfer, you look at the teams in the CFP, it's going to blow your mind. Okay, percentage of transfers on their rosters.
Okay.
Michigan, 10.5%. Washington, 11.7%. Texas, 5.9%. Bama, 5.9%. I don't agree with what the CFP did with putting Bama instead of Florida State, but if you just look at the teams that are in it, they're all less than 12%.
Yeah.
Like, so I just think there's still something to, like, if you said what's more valuable, the 3-star high school player that can develop or the 5-star transfer, 9 out of 10 times, I'd take the high school player if I know he's going to stay.
Yeah.
Unless it's Caleb Williams. Unless it's like a true difference maker. You know, you think about it, like quarterbacks, you know, like Brandon said, some need a change of scenery. I agree with that. Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr., Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
Let's just take Caleb off the table because that was so unique. But for those other two guys, and even Jaden Daniels, guy who won the Heisman, they all played.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like they sat on the bench and were the 2 or the 3 after year 1 and said, nah.
Yeah.
I don't want to battle here. I don't see it happening here. I'm out real quick. That's the part that I have a problem with. Like, I think that when you sign, if you sign an NIL deal, it's almost like baseball. Like, I think you should sign and have to be there for at least 2 seasons. I'm not going to say 3. Like, you know, if you go to college in baseball, you have to stay for, I think, 3 seasons. I think that's still the rule.
Yeah.
I think you should have to, if you sign a letter of intent, I think you have to stay for 2 years. You just have to. Because, like, there has to be a period of where you go through something challenging. Because the only thing I can guarantee you, and I'm stealing this from Chris Peterson on our podcast last year, the only thing that we can guarantee every recruit is that it's going to go exactly unlike how you think it's going to go.
Yep.
It just is. You're going to get hurt. You're going to struggle. You're going to thrive. It's just going to be different than what you think. So why do you have the opportunity to dip within a year?
Yeah, it's true.
I get the extenuating circumstances, like if the coach leaves, etc. But I just think there should be some guardrails. I think the other thing around NIL is that it was meant for a totally different objective than the one that it's serving now. It just is. Like, the market of a quarterback, the market value of a quarterback is dramatically high because the collectives are setting the value. The talent is not setting the value.
Yeah.
The gamesmanship is not setting the value. Like, I just think there's something there. And then if we had time, I would have brought this up to Brandon, and we could talk about this with some future guests. But next year at this time, when the playoff is expanded, I just believe that if you said to me, or if I said to you, let's just pretend that you're old, okay? And let's just pretend you're the father of a portal transfer. And let's just say that player has had an exquisite season. And now you just went through, let's call it 13 games because you had to go to a conference championship. Let's say you lost the conference championship game. Let's just call it Oregon. You're the father of the Oregon quarterback, whatever you wanted to name your child, okay? And you end up being an 11 seed. And you just went through this whole year. You had a heck of a season. You got a chance to now go to win a championship. And let's just say market value, with what we talked about with Brandon, let's just call it $1 million. You just made $1 million in NIL for 13 games. Well, now, because you're an 11 seed, you're going to have to play 4 more. You, as the father or agent or manager of that said quarterback, are you saying, hey, collective, I'm going to need another 800,000 right now because the viewership is triple over the course of the next 4 games. The value you could bring to this university as a national champion, potential national champion, is through the roof. Yeah. The exposure that and the access we're going to offer. Like, I just think there's a world where we're going to see in the playoff era more and more teams be lessened once they get to the playoff. Like, I don't think teams are going to be at full strength heading into the playoff in the 12-team format. I don't think that's getting any dialogue at all.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you're not just playing 1 or 2 games. If you're the 4 teams, I get it. But you better believe out of the 4 teams that are in the playoff this year, this is just my opinion, but I will go to town on this opinion. If any of those 4 teams were left out of the playoff, a lot of their stars would not be playing in the bowl game. I don't care if it's a New Year's Six game or whatever game. So I just think that the CFP, while thankfully is expanding, I think the talent's going to dilute. Or the collective is going to have to pay even more. So now, be the collective at your said school. Do you pay TJ's son, the quarterback, another, call it $800,000 to play in 4 more games? Or do you go pay Dylan Gabriel or another transferred quarterback that money? Or do you just have endless money? And now we just don't have a salary cap. Like, at what point does it become beyond ludicrous? Because it already is ludicrous. And every coach, I think, would agree with that. And that's the discussion that we'll have with other people on this pod. But that is the one that, let's let the CFP finish and get through it and Washington win a natty. But I do want to have that dialogue in the new year, because I think that it's fair to be had.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really interesting point. You're right. Literally 0 people are talking about that. So that's a really good point. I have a question. The percentages you gave me of the 4 teams in the playoff, was that coming into this year, or is that currently?
No, it's the rosters right now.
So my question is because I've seen some guys from like Bama and stuff that have been leaving, even though they're in the playoff. Like, if those teams aren't in the playoff, are those numbers higher? Is it really only because they're in the playoff, and then post playoff there will be more guys that transfer out in that like second window later on? Or do you think that's not necessarily as much the case?
It's a good question. Like, I don't know what rules still are enacted by the NCAA. Like, you're only allowed 85 scholarship players.
Yeah.
So I wonder if you are far down the line. Well, if you're at one of those schools, you're saying, hey, the portal closes January 3rd. If we win this first playoff game on the 1st, the title game is the 8th, and then I'm going to be on this team. Yeah. So I think that if you're a portal guy, you're already saying, like, I'm out. And I think the roster management, and we're going to see it with signing day tomorrow, like that, I guarantee you at all these signing day shows, the dialogue will not be around today's signees. It'll be on roster management. Like, that phrase will be said more times than NIL. Guaranteed. Once you turn on your television or wherever you watch signing day tomorrow, I'd urge everybody to go to 24/7's website to watch their incredible coverage. But to that point, Tej, like, yeah, you're on it. Because the coaches are saying, all right, I need 5 more spots. I've talked to a lot of recruits heading into signing day, high school players that want to go to some really elite schools. Let's just talk about, they want to go to, I know a couple players that want to go to teams that are in the playoff, but they're saying, I don't know if we have a spot because we're saving it for the portal. So I think, like, we started early signing period because we wanted guys to sign early that wanted to sign early and be mid-year. Yeah. Well, there's also a world where, like, there isn't a spot for you mid-year. So when do you sign? Yeah. Like, you don't have to sign tomorrow. You don't have to sign in early February. You can wait until the second window opens in the portal in the spring, in April, and be like, all right, I'll just sign like a financial aid package. Now you lose the fanfare, you lose the social following, you lose a lot of the stuff that unfortunately matters a dramatic amount. So again, the roster management is the most fascinating. Like, we should get on like a GM, maybe Courtney Morgan at Washington, or a GM to talk through roster management for the listener. Because I think it's something that isn't getting enough dialogue right now. Because you're right, everybody's dipping before these huge games because they're saying, I got to find a spot. So it's a bummer.
This conversation is not the last.
This was the Afterglow was another episode today. All right, we're done. We're out of here. Make sure you check us out on YouTube. We got a bunch of clips from our shows. I think it was really fun to go to the Heisman, put some clips on that. So just check out my YouTube channel, just under Yogi Roth. You can find that there. And with these conversations, share them with a friend. And if you love signing day, I think this one's a little bit different than probably most signing day shows, as we went a little bit more theoretical than player specific. So TJ, lots of love. Hopefully you edited in a picture of you on signing day into this Afterglow. And of course to Brandon Huffman, love that guy as well. Peace.